Good evening, I'm Paweł Spychalski and please welcome in the next FPV live stream, Saturday night live extravaganza. Okay, how about now? Is it working right now? Or is it not working? Sorry for the technical problems, but my OBS decided that there is an error during encoding and I have no idea if it's working. So do we have a recovery? Can you see and can you hear me? So thumbs up, thumbs down, just write something in the chat because this is the first time I saw ever this message. Now it looks fine, but you never know. Okay, so if it's working now, then one more time from the top. Good evening, good morning, good night, good night. No, that will be in a few hours during the Saturday night live FPV stream with me, Paweł Spychalski, trying to entertain you and talk about the FPV, talk about the radio control, INAV Betaflight and ExpressLRS. And maybe even share some thoughts or interesting stories with you. This is the interactive experience. So although I have prepared a list of topics that I will be covering today, because having the list of the topics I do want to talk about is a good idea. Still, if you have a question or idea or whatever, then please write it in the chat. So if I will just have a moment, and I will have a moment for sure, then we will just go through your question. Yes, I know that in the beginning this live stream was a Q&A mainly, but then at one point I discovered that people stopped asking questions, and that also meant that I had to come up with the contingency plan in case that we have this awkward silence and have something to talk about. The first thing I want to talk about is the weather, and the weather outside. Oh, it's winter. Here in the Central Europe we have right now full-blown winter with snow all the time for the last few days. It actually started last week when we were on a short holiday on the seaside. Then we came home and there was that much of the snow. I know that usually there are at least a few people from Canada, and for you that much of the snow is not a big thing. However, here when I live, it is actually a big thing having that much of the snow. And during the last weeks, especially since Friday, yesterday and today, it was raining most of the time. And as the result, I'm super happy I changed my tires to the winter option. So that's good. That also means that no flying, no testing, no anything. It's cold, it's white, it's dark, and just blah. So I'm waiting for something like a improved weather to try to test some stuff in flight, because I'm working on quite a lot of improvements for the INAV, and some people will be super happy to see those improvements, but because of the weather it just have to, well, let's say, be on hold. So the intro is done. Then how was your last 3 weeks? Because I think the last live stream was 3 weeks. If you have any interesting stories, then please write them in the chat. Hit the like button because everybody likes the like button. And let's see what's happening interesting in the chat. Alison, hello mate. Oh, Benedict, I'm super happy you are here, by the way. All thumbs up, and that's like huge kudos to Benedict Bicklainer, which is the guy that made the H7 possible in the INAV. And right now he's doing quite a lot of interesting stuff for the INAV itself. And Benedict, if you pull off the asynchronous I2C, you will be the INAV hero. Really, I do really mean it. By the way, I got the info that the package is still in Poland for you, but let's hope that the package for you will arrive in the only a few days. So that's great. Loisimi FPV, hello Loisimi. Finland, oh yeah, the Finland, I'm pretty sure the Finland is, it's called Failsafe FPV Floor Flyer Arch 4A, okay, Francesco, hello Nord 49, Eric, and Kevin Smith, and Tech Chef. So, and we have people from Dominican Republic. I'm pretty sure that in the Dominican Republic the weather is right now much nicer than over here. But what do I know? And there is at 3 p.m. in Brazil, 31 degrees. Okay, 31 degrees, that's definitely too Too hot for me. I do work with a lot of Brazilians, but all the Brazilians I work with decided, okay, I'm leaving Brazil, I'm going Germany, and they seems to be quite happy with this option. I wonder why. I've heard some stories, but no idea how true those stories really were. Okay, Lusimi in Finland, we have right now snow for the month already, and I have got a couple shots on snow already. Cool. Here, well, yeah, it's not really about the shot because flying in the snow is not a problem, but if it's snowing all the time and it's like dark, then blah, 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 blah. So snow itself is fine. Snow itself is fine, but flying during the fall of the snow is not that much fine, so I'm currently trying to avoid things like that. So let's go with the news section because I do have some of the news prepared. I only have to click here because just to let you know, just to remind everyone, I'm recording parts of the stream and I will be publishing parts of the stream as a separate video. Let's call them excerpts, because this is a nice way for me to, let's say, to have extra material to go, because recently, due to the, let's say, the lack of time and willingness to do some different things, I'm kind of, you probably noticed that I'm recording quite less materials, because for example in June, July I was able to publish 23 videos a month. Now I'm publishing like 10 to 12, so there is a difference, and everything has the reason. But okay, let's talk about INAV 4.0. I have a very good news. For probably 95%, the INAV 4.0 will be released in the next week. From the top, I have a good news about INAV 4.0. The INAV 4.0 for 95% will be released exactly 1 week from now, because on the 18th of the December 2021, the next Saturday, we're gonna have during the stream an event when I will hit the button and release everything to the public, and you will be able to fly it, use it, flash it, and have a lot of fun for the Christmas. What is currently the RC2 of INAV 4.0 is like almost completely what will be released in the official, because so far we were extremely lucky that there are no major problems. At least nobody found any major problem in the INAV release. Yes, there were a few minors, including the problems with the configurator and some edge cases during the navigation, but hopefully all of those were fixed, and that means we are confident that INAV 4.0 is ready to go for everyone. So get ready for the next week and the huge event we're gonna have over here. And I also have a news. I decided to make every of the INAV releases slightly more interesting, and starting from the 4.0, I will add because why not? Let's add a name to the release, because for example, like Ubuntu is releasing each version, they have this cool name, ludicrous something. I'm not using Ubuntu for years now, so the INAV 4.0 will be called the Red Kite. It's quite a popular, not the popular, it's a quite common bird of prey here where I live. I even have a pair of the red kites that are flying over here during the summer, and they are cool birds, so why not give a INAV 4.0 a cool name, and let's have an INAV 4 Red Kite. Look how much better it sounds than just INAV 4. So that was the news about INAV. I have too much clicking to do over here. So what do you think about the name? I think it's a pretty cool name. We wanted to do something like that even a few years ago, but somehow the idea died back then, and we kind of just were releasing. But let's give this like the push. The push. By the way, who's using INAV 4.0 already? Anybody tested that? Any opinions? Any words to share about this thing? So anyone? Okay. Dominican Republic, installing H47 Mini and Alpha Strike, and it works, okay. And Blair Nichols tested it extensively with the X8. I should stop mixing Polish and English words in one sentence. So that's very good. I was, and we in the INAV and development world are flying development version. So yeah, I'm already flying INAV 5, for example. But this is only one of the elements. Probably in January we will release also INAV 4.1. INAV 4.1 will be INAV 4.0 with a small update. It will be the update for the dynamic filters, dynamic notches. Because after we cut the release candidate, I made some progress with making this thing better. So just like really a minor update 4.1, you will be able just to flash it without absolutely any changes in the CLI. So flash without full chip arrays, and it will work just fine. So 4.0 on the 18th, and today is 11th, so on the 18th, and probably somewhere in the January, because I do want to test something. We're gonna have the event with the INAV 4.1, but this time just release, not really like worry about this thing for too much, because why not? 4Eyes FPV, will it support Canvas Mode? There is a challenge, a problem with the Canvas Mode is that supposedly kind of Canvas Mode is supposed to be created. I even saw some examples that it's working, however it was not proposed to the main repository because the guys that were doing this do not probably have this thing yet covered. However, I'm asking them from time to time, okay, what's the situation with the Canvas Mode? Can we have a progress with the Canvas Mode? And if you dig really deeply, you will find the strange versions of INAV that are working with the Canvas Mode. However, for the official release, no, I'm afraid there will be no Canvas Mode yet. That might change, but we will know when we will know. And I really do hope that the guys that promised to implement Canvas Mode will deliver this as soon as possible. But you know how it is from time to time. Jogas Vamvonakis, sorry for butchering your name, asks, am I going to release a guide on YouTube how to set up INAV on the cine lifters? I'm having trouble transferring my Betaflight filters to INAV filters. So yes, because I'm even working on the cine lifter. I'm working on my own cine lifter. I have right now, I think most of the parts in transfer. I'm designing my own frame. I even got some tools to make this happen because I'm not. I will be doing some of the parts of the frame in-house. However, you do not transfer the filters from Betaflight to INAV. You can transfer the PID values more or less. However, INAV has a completely different set of the filters, and you have to basically set up the filters inside of the INAV. So go with defaults and play with LPF cutoffs, and that's probably the best way to do it. You probably should watch my videos about how to set up INAV on 7-inch drones, because it will be very similar. Cine lifters, so how big cine lifter? 8-inch, 9-inch, 7-inch. Probably the values I suggest for the 7-inch quads are quite close to what the cine lifters are really neat, and it should actually work quite fine. I think I will probably know more after my, let's say, the Pirks lifter project will be done. And by the way, I see that we have 48 people watching and only 18 hit like button. So come on, guys, do me a favor, hit the like button, because why not? Because maybe more people will join and we're gonna have a nicer conversation. Because why content creators, YouTubers and stuff like that are doing those streams? To have people to watch them, and the more people are watching, the happier everyone, because yes, we are petty little men after all. So 8-incher Geogia, so probably my video about the 7-inch quads will be just fine. Probably. But let's remember that every single lifter, depending on the payload and so on, will. It's not like it's a 5-inch when you can have like quite similar tune for everything. There will be really some differences, but probably what I have for the 7-inchers is the best way to start. So. Oh, we have 30, so more than 10 people hit the like button. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so on topic of the cine lifters, this is very important because the topic of the cine lifter, everybody loves the cine lifters. So INAV is getting some of the traction, and I'm not sure if you know, but Catalyst Machine Works is working right now on the cine lifters that are using INAV on board. So see the sorry, Catalyst Machine Works, this company that are making frames for years. Maybe not this one, but they kind of released, or rather made it public, and gave their machine, which is called the Money Shot, to the NURC FPV. And yeah, you see, it's flying. It's flying, it's a cine lifter fully equipped with INAV, and NURC FPV was kinda happy how it flies, so why not? And I do have to say that this build was kinda created partially thanks to my help, because I advise the Neil from the Catalyst Machine Works how to set up INAV on these birds, and I know that they have other quads running INAV, or at least they are working on other quads running INAV. If you have not seen the video by the NURC FPV, what this thing can do and how actually pretty good INAV can fly if you know how to tune it, then why not to watch the NURC's FPV video about that? Because yeah, they seem to be kinda happy, and I was kinda like, oh yeah, this thing you can park it in the air and it returns to home and lands. How amazing is that? So it's indeed really quite amazing, and I do have to say that I'm proud. I'm proud for the last few years of work of the whole INAV team and myself, of how far we were able to go from the INAV 1 to current INAV 4, doing such an amazing things, and working with such an amazing machines. Because you see, we have huge thing with 6 motors carrying the camera that costs way more than the drone, and it's flying, it's not even crashing. Oh, bright until I fly. Hello, mate. It was a while since the last time you visited, so hey, Jack. How's life? How's the situation in Great Britain right now? Manageable, or you suffer? Because, for example, over here in Poland, like nobody cares about the coronavirus anymore. Like, no, which is kind of sad, because I really don't know how it looks like in the other parts of the world where you live, but here we are losing like more than 500 people every day due to corona, so it's kind of suck. I'm happily vaccinated with 2 doses, and I think on Monday I can get a 3rd dose, and I'm doing this next week because I do want to get a 3rd dose and do not have to worry about this crap for the next few months. So that's this is how it goes, and luckily my whole family, besides the youngest children, is also vaccinated. So yeah. Eric Greb Boy Toft, do I have a link handy for the setup on the 7-inch? No, I don't, but if you go to my channel, you will be able to find those videos without absolutely any problems. But we can always check, like INAV 7-inch setup. Yeah, you see, we have for the INAV 2.6, and I'm pretty sure that you will also find for other versions of INAV. So it's there. So it's there, and you really do not have to. Because when you type INAV in the Google and some kind of tutorial, it's usually either me or the Lee painless 360 about the INAV stuff. So it's not really that hard to find. So many non-believers over here. Yeah, I know about non-believers. Friend, colleague, less than a friend, acquaintance, ex-neighbor. She was, no, I'm not getting vaccinated because I'm not getting vaccinated, blah, 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 blah. And she, of course, landed in the hospital, and she was kind of happy she survived. And strangest thing, she is working in the healthcare still. Okay, some people are, okay. Maybe let's concentrate on the RC and the FPV stuff, because this thing is probably interesting. Jan Booth, how will INAV fly compared to ImuFlight? I'm running Super 7-inch Super G+. INAV fly is probably more comparable to ImuFlight than to Betaflight, because the flight mechanics are slightly more similar, and because both flight controllers are using the same Kalman filter, it's quite similar. Is there a major difference? Well, INAV offers all those new fancy modes, GPS connected and much better OSD and more targets and so on and so on and so on. But if your quad is flying well with the ImuFlight, most probably you will have absolutely no problems with setting this correctly with the INAV, because also INAV with the INAV 4.0 will have the rate dynamics, we have the Smith predictor, we have the Kalman, we had the ABG filter, but I got rid of that because it was not working. So yeah, will fly at least comparable. I don't want to say better or worse, but the experience will be quite similar. And I see that my OBS is reporting that the connection is not great. That sucks that the connection is not great. Let me click some of the buttons over here. Because my internet is radio. Every time there is snow, like today, we have a problem with the connection, and I do see that it's breaking all the time. Short break, please. Okay, so yeah, I do have a problem with the internet connection, unfortunately. I do wish that I had a better internet connection, but I have what I have, and usually it behaves quite nice. However, when there is snow and there is a thunderstorm in close by, it has some problems. Still, let's hope that everything will be better soon. And yeah, you know how it is. I cannot lower the bitrate more. Maybe I should. Maybe I should lower the bitrate slightly. Because it's better to have in the poor quality than no quality at all. Right? So yeah, okay, and now it got slightly better. So sorry for one more time for this, but unfortunately we all do live inside of the reality we all do live, and I cannot really do much better than I can. So okay. Astromancer, yes, I did say Kalman filter. Yes, I do say that every one of the hardcore Betaflight jarheads will have, it's not a Kalman filter, blah, 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 blah. No, it is a Kalman filter, and I decided I don't want to have the discussion with anyone anymore, that yes, it is a Kalman filter, yes, it's working, yes, it's a dynamic filter, and no, you will not see how it works just by looking at some transmission graphs, because when your quad is clean enough, it's actually doing absolutely nothing. It only starts to do stuff with the stuff it's doing once the quality of the gyro signal goes like below the threshold. By the way, as soon as the weather will clear, I'm intending to have the experiment with the proper black box logs on, off, and so on, to show anyone that yes, the Kalman filter from the INAV actually works, and it makes sense to use it. Because it makes sense to use it and it actually works. So that's how it goes. Plus, there is a myth that it's not working because you cannot observe it, and here is the problem, that the up to INAV 4, the result of the Kalman was not logged as the gyro output. Because it was processed further down the road and it was stored only as the set point, so you were not able to see this in the gyro graphs. But yeah, it's there, it's working, and as soon as I will have enough of the opportunity to record material about this, everybody will know about this. And I still see that my internet connection is super crap. Super crap. I hate when my internet is super crap. Let's see how crappy it is right now. Yeah, I consent, speed test. Yeah, let's hit start. Oh my, you can see my IP. This is a tragedy. So, what's up with my internet? Hey, internet. Okay, I'm getting like at least 1/3 of the speed I'm usually getting. So it doesn't look good on the download, and let's check the upload. But definitely my internet has some problems. Too bad. Ooh, yeah, so we know what's going on. My upload is completely botched. I should be like somewhere here, maybe somewhere closer to here, but it's not looking good. Okay, but like I said, we do what we do and we live inside of the constraints we do have, so I don't think I can fix it any more than I can fix it. So let's just see what will be happening down the road. Ralph from Wisconsin, thank you very much for the warm words. Elbartnox, yes. What is the best position to mount a QMC 5883 external compass on the quad and its alignment in INAV? Never used, thank you. I do think that I have a video about this thing or two, but the rules are simple. Let me get the quad. Probably the best place to mount the GPS and the external magnetometer is here, between the rear arms. The rule of thumb that you have to keep the magnetometer at least 5 centimeters from anything else, like the wires, ESC, motors, battery leads, and stuff like that. And here in the back, it's actually probably the best way to do it, because there's at least 10 centimeters, 4 inches to the motors, and it's just working just fine. And I'm trying to install this thing like that in basically all of my modern quads I'm flying right now. Yeah, I also have some with the small mast over here, but during the crash it usually breaks the mast, and this is why this is not something I can recommend. And how? Flat with the flight controller. Do not tilt it, do not bend it. It can be mounted tilted, but then you have to play with the compass orientation, compute the angles exactly, and it's usually not worth it. I think Painless360 made a video about that a few weeks ago, so you can go there, but my advice is just to mount it flat with the flight controller and it will work like that absolutely. No problem. The Tech Chef, so I have a question, please. What surface throws would you recommend for the powered glider? peak powered gliders are not really my thing, to be honest. I'm definitely not an expert on those topics, so I really don't know. I really don't know. I would aim for at least 15 degrees of the deflection. That seems like a value that should work for you. But then, if we are setting this with the flight controller, you still have to match the rates and then everything into the Autotune. But 15 degrees should be fine, probably. And because at least on the ailerons, you should have enough of the authority on that. But really, I never flew something that big and especially powered gliders, so I'm super far from being an expert on that topic. That's This is how it goes. Because I don't know it all. I don't know it all, and because I don't know it all, I will not pretend that I know it all. Okay, so this is one. Now I suppose that we can go to the next element of business. And okay, 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 maybe like that. Like maybe some of from the top, from the top. Okay. Like probably, like probably some of you know, the Betaflight 4.3 is finally happening. At least this is the latest rumor, and if everything will go well, in the next month or two, we should get the official release of the Betaflight 4.3. Yes, it's possible to use the Betaflight 4.3 even right now using the nightly builds, but having something that was tested and went to the correct process of the release candidate is usually a good idea, because it gives you some confidence that it's working just like expected. Because the release cycle of the Betaflight 4.3 took more or less 1.5 years, there is a lot of changes, a lot of improvements for the Betaflight project, and we might expect one of the biggest releases so far. And I will definitely not go through every single possible feature that they did in the last 18 months. However, I would like to talk briefly about some of the new stuff that the Betaflight developers are adding to the Betaflight 4.3, because I personally think that they are interesting. And the list, and believe it or not, but the list is actually pretty short. First of all, there are new types of the filters. Previously, Betaflight was using the PT1 and the Big Quad filter, and this was usually covering everything you really needed. If you wanted heavier filtering, that you were using Big Quad. If your build was kinda smoother and less noisy, then you were able to fully use the PT1. However, the problem with the Big Quad is that it's not always behaving like it should be, so the Betaflight developers introduced the PT2 and the PT3 filters, which are PT1s in the cascade. So the PT2 is more or less the equivalent of the Big Quad, and comparing to the Big Quad, it offers nicer transition and solves some of the problems of the Big Quad itself. We will not go into those details because this is too technical. However, this is something interesting if you are right now using Big Quad filtering. And if you think that your quad might fly better, there is right now the option to keep more or less the same level of the filtering, but have a smaller phase delay by only switching to the PT2 on the gyro and the D-term filtering. And I see that my internet is misbehaving one more time. Bloody hell. This is really super irritating. Because even right now my OBS says that everything is working just fine, but the YouTube is saying that it's not working just fine. Oh bloody hell. Big Boost FPV. Hi man. But now let's continue with the Betaflight 4.3. Probably the best improvement of the Betaflight 4.3 are the new dynamic notch filters. Dynamic notch filters are with Betaflight for years, and basically it's based on the analysis of the incoming gyro signal. There is an FFT fast Fourier transformation of the gyro signal that allows us to check which frequency bands are the most visible in the signal. And rule of thumb is if something is above 100 Hz, then most probably it's only a noise, it's a junk and should be filtered out. So the Betaflight was and is and will be applying the notch filters on those frequencies detected by the FFT analysis of the gyro signal. However, up to the Betaflight 4.2 including, there was only a one notch per axis. So it was finding the most distinctive frequency and trying to attenuate this frequency with the targeted notch filter. With the Betaflight 4.3, Betaflight is able to track up to 5 notches, up to 5 peaks, up to 5 frequencies in the gyro signal. By default it's 3, and attenuate them separately. This means that now the dynamic notches have much more chance of successfully fighting with the vibration, because it can attenuate not only the main motor frequency, it also can fight with any of the resonance frequencies, but also has enough of the room to also try to attack the harmonic frequencies of any of those. And as a result, I tested, yes, it definitely flies much better, because it's just able to attenuate with those notches much more of the peaks in the noise gathered by the gyro sensor on board. So, how about those notches and dynamic notches? Interesting stuff, right? By the way, INAV 4.1 will also get something very similar, but let's continue. Then the D-term RPM filters are gone. It was proved that they were just not working, they were not doing anything very useful, so Betaflight 4.3 drops completely the D-term RPM notches. Of course, the gyro RPM notches stays, and more than that, they are improved, because now there will be something called the BQuad crossfit that greatly improves the behavior of those notches when the motor frequency goes close to the mean frequency. Because in the Betaflight 4.2 and before, when the motor frequency from the ESCs and the RPM filter was closing to the minimum frequency that was allowed to work on, there was some ringing, because this is how the BQuad notch was behaving. With the Betaflight 4.3 there is right now something called the crossfit, and the attenuation and how the notch is working changes when it closes to the minimum frequency, eliminating this ringing. Interesting. This one I never checked. I'm not sure how much better this is, but yeah, let's hope this will work just fine. Next, Betaflight finally solved probably one of the most irritating user interface problem as the rates, because right now the actual rates are the default rates for the Betaflight. That means that it's greatly simplified, and when you set the rates to 800 degrees per second, that means it is really 800 degrees per second. And finally, I have no idea why Betaflight waited so long to make the actual rates the default rates for the whole system. On top of that, there were a lot of changes and improvements for the whole feed-forward infrastructure, how feed-forward the reaction of the PID control that is happening when you quickly move your sticks, especially on the roll and the yaw, including many changes. I will definitely not go through all of them because the topic is too big. However, we might even say that the feed-forward behavior and the implementation for the 4.3 is basically written from scratch. and as the result behaves much better than before. And something like a novelty, Betaflight 4.3 comes with the support for the STM32 H7 flight controllers. I'm not aware if there are any G4 flight controllers on the market yet, however this is happening. What is G4? G4 is, let's say, something, it's probably closer to the F411 than F7 because it's smaller, cheaper and less powerful and also less costly than the F7s and also F405s, however more than the 411s. So as the option there will be more flight controllers in the future, and this is a huge deal because of the crisis on the chip market, because right now you almost cannot buy chips, and having the option to put something that maybe is on the market is the huge help for the manufacturers. And at the end we will know how good the G4s are working and are they worthy when we will finally have the G4s in our hands. No idea when that will happen. But Grinder FPV, no, we have not talked about the ExpressLRS 2.0. We will do it in some time. I have this thing on my list, but not yet. Let me finish with the Betaflight 4.3 and then let's do other stuff. ExpressLRS 2.0 is coming, by the way. But I do really would like to finish this Betaflight 4.3 segment because it's always super interesting. North 49 RC, basically the supply of any flight controllers is super low right now because of the chip crisis. And the prices are really like absurd, but we were talking about this so many times. And maybe it will change next year, maybe not. But the final two changes for the Betaflight 4.3 are something of the user experience and the tuning experience. The first of them is the ability of the Betaflight to remap motor order and change the motor direction from the graphical user interface. You will, with the 4.3, no longer have to go to the CLI and type some commands hoping to remap motors. You will be able to use the wizard in the Betaflight configurator to change the order and change the direction of each motor without having to go to the BL Heli configurator. Why? Because right now Betaflight will be able to send the reverse motor direction command over the D-shot and thus drive the direction of the rotation of the motors. No problems. And finally the presets. Betaflight 4.3 comes with the presets. Presets are the community, official or non-official, list of settings that can be applied by the users because someone decided that this set of settings has some advantage. So we will be able to have the default tune, the karate tune, the preset for the cine lifters, preset for the sine whoops, and so on and so on and so on. As the result, if you are not really that much into the tuning the quad yourself, you will be able just to find the preset in the list, filter this by the keywords, apply, and hopefully your quad will fly much better than before. Oh boy, that was something. That was definitely something. I'm tired. I'm sorry, but I'm tired. Whew. Whoa. Whoa. Okay, let's see what's happening in the chat. Because Kevin Smith asks, do I have a satellite on the cellular radio? Neither. It's the, I think, 5 gigahertz, some directional link. I don't know the details, but I think I have like 5 to 10 kilometers to the next base station. So it's just the radio internet that comes over here. I have it for plenty of years, and really, usually it's working just fine. But from time to time, unfortunately, it's not really working that fine, and especially today. No idea why. I really do think that this is because of the snow and the stuff that is happening. Luis Hurtado. Pavel's video style is tripping me out, almost like watching him do a whole bunch of takes for editing later. Well, yeah, Luis, that's basically what happened. Sorry, but I decided it's a good idea to use those live stream to record some of the videos for the future. Um, I wanted to do the video about the Betaflight 4.3 anyway, so because I had this thing on the list, so I just did it in the more, let's say, structured way. So then I will edit this, and I'm not sure if you noticed, but even the overlay with the address and then my Instagram account and disappeared for the moment I was recording. I'm sorry. I'm using you like that, but this is for me. This is really a huge time saver when I can basically combine two of the topics at once. Benedict writes that G4 is a nice chip. We had a Nucleo for this a while. Looking forward to FCs with it. Yes, I'm definitely the G4s are not the bigger flight controllers, MCUs than we have right now. And we at INAV were actually looking at the G4 some time ago and decided that we are not going GeForce because what INAV really needs, what INAV flight controller needs, are bigger, stronger MCUs, not the weaker and cheaper, because of the UARTs, I2Cs, and the processing power and so on. But for the Betaflight, apparently it's just enough. So it should be good. And I really would like to see how this thing will be behaving with Betaflight on board. And if anybody of the manufacturers is listening maybe to this, I would like to get some samples. Dusking, if you are watching, I would like to get some samples. I really would like to to see what's going on. Maybe I should make another video about the differences between the different MCUs. Maybe, who knows? This might be a good idea. Have you noticed, oh, by the way, have you noticed that right now on the market there is no longer problem buying the DJI FPV compatible cameras? One, two, for my upcoming Cinelifter project, I decided I'm doing this thing digital. So I found this one, absolutely no problem. And they were like available in shops. So apparently, at least for the DJI stuff, the problem of not being able to buy those things is no longer a thing, and you can easily buy them both from China and locally. And this is good. This is good. They are still pricey. I do have to say that they are pricey, but at least there is not a problem of getting. Oh, by the way, I have something interesting. Wait a second. I got an interesting quad for testing. This. It doesn't look like a quad, right? Yet it is. Wait a second. What is this? What is this? This is the Farins Frames Frog V3. Yes. Not the 5-inch. No, this is not this one. And now I cannot find it. Okay, never mind. Let's just go to the quad I have. This is the Farins Frames Frog, 4-incher. So nothing super fancy, if not the fact that it looks kinda strange. And this is the idea of the foldable arms. You can just extend the arms and you have the full quad. And it looks like that. It's a digital version with the 4-inch props and the Brother Hobby 1404 motors. I would like to have slightly bigger motors, but you cannot always have everything. And the GPS on the top. I only don't know why they put Betaflight on this, and the GPS that has a magnetometer. This GPS has the magnetometer, but they have not connected the magnetometer. Even the wires that are for the SCL SDA over over here are not connected, so that the migration of this thing to INAV is slightly more complicated than it should be. But I do have to say that this is interesting. It's not that the 4-incher is such a big frame that you do really have to worry about this thing, but having a foldable arms is not that bad. I don't want to say skeptical, but I'm not really yet sure how required it will be to tighten the screws that are holding the arms after each deployment, because there is something like a detent on the arms, and they are kind of nicely latching in place, but I would probably prefer to really like tighten them with the screwdriver after every deployment. And I do interesting, it's how this small dead cat actually flies. Interesting stuff. A design, definitely slightly different design than the majority of the quad designs we have on the market, and yeah, who knows, but because of the snow, I'm waiting to have at least a moment of the decent weather to try to test this thing. Interesting. Definitely interesting stuff. So that was this. So what else do we have? Jason Marotta, no, I have not, but I've heard about this and I would like to give it a try, because having this wireless link to your PC is such a nice idea that actually it makes sense. Blair Nichols says that folding arms are great until you take a small crash and it tries to take off and kills itself. Yeah, because if during the crash the arm will collapse, then no, it's not longer flying, and the propeller can hit different things, and like Blair says, it might just disassembles itself in a very rapid way. Nord 49 RC, the 3D printed locks are actually quite a nice idea. I will try to think about this for a second, because it looks like something. And remember that I told you that I have no idea why this thing comes flashed with the Betaflight. Betaflight is fantastic, outstanding, and all, but Betaflight is not designed for the long-range missions. If you would like to have the long-range mission, long-range quad, then flash INAV or Ardu Pilot, not the Betaflight. Because yeah, the GPS rescue is okay, it's fine, yeah, but it misses so many of the OSD elements. It's missing the real landing after the return to home, not just drop, and it's just more suited. But okay, I get it. Betaflight is much more popular. It makes sense. However, I'm kinda happy that it seems like the Betaflight, the INAV is catching on. I will not tell you which company, because I was not authorized. Maybe not authorized. I don't want to be in front, but I know that some of the bigger companies, and one of the biggest companies currently in the hobby RC FPV market, is thinking about starting selling ready to fly INAV equipped quads. That's something. If they will do it, I will be super happy, because like 6 months ago, the same company, when I tried to approach them for something with the INAV business, they wrote to me, no, we are not interested in INAV at all. We are only interested in Betaflight. And so like, go away, don't bother us with this crap anymore. Now, half a year later, they are really thinking about having their quads, especially the long-range equipped quads, flashed with INAV instead of Betaflight from the factory. This is the good news. This is the good news for the project, and I really wonder why it took so many years for the for the companies to really figure this thing out. Yeah. So, Cranket, no, I have not tried the keys. Because for keys you have to have keys, and somehow nobody ever really like convinced me that I do want to have keys or gave me keys, so I never really tried keys. I'm not sure how good the return to home of the keys is, but I would not be surprised if Betaflight Return to Home is actually better. No, sorry. INAV Return to Home is actually better. Cobra! Hello, man! Siemaneczko, Cobra. Cobra is Polish. I'm Polish, so we can speak Polish to each other. Okay, let's quickly see what else do we have on the chat in the last few minutes, because maybe there are some interesting questions that we might actually want to answer. Big Boost FPV, hello mate, nice to see you. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, Martin Christianson has two questions, and the question number one is Crossfire used with the DMA? I'm not sure if I correctly understand the question, because CRSF, as the protocol that connects the Crossfire receivers to the flight controller, is the serial protocol. That means that you have the serial port on the receiver talking to the serial port on the flight controller. And this is not really DMA related at all, because this is completely different level. However, here we go into the question of, does the implementation on the serial port on the flight controller is using a DMA? And I would have to say that no, because those are independent ports that you do not really have to have DMA. I'm pretty sure you could do it with the DMA if you really wanted, but I don't think that this is how all the flight controller softwares are really doing like that. So there is no DMA for that, because there is a special dedicated controller that handles the serial communication, and just flight controller checks if something in the buffer reads from the buffer in and do stuff. So no DMA, but this is, I think the question is slightly misplaced, because it's only a serial protocol, and how the serial port is done on the flight controller on the receiver is a completely different set of the problems, and no. And Martin Christiansen's second question, one shot 125 minimum update frequency without ESC shuts down, the shortest or the longest update frequency? I think that if you go slower than 200 kilohertz, it might not work. I think so, but I'm not sure how this is really implemented in the ESCs, because this is really based with the ESCs. But one shot 25 running at 2 kilohertz or 1 kilohertz definitely should work absolutely no problem. But because the implementation in the ESC might differ from BSC to ESC, I suggest you just test it. I would leave it on the defaults. On the fastest, I don't think you can have one shot 125 running faster than 4 kilohertz. No, 2 kilohertz, because it's the shortest period is 125 microseconds, and you have some 200. Yeah, the fastest is 2 kilohertz, but the slowest, I think I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. One more time, I just don't know it all. Dorel Kodrut, any idea if we will have Betaflight kiss rates? It's INAV. It is the only way to keep me away from flying my INAV quad. Thanks. So, but why? What's so special about the Betaflight or kiss rates? Why can't we just have the rates like the INAV does it? When you set the rates as the maximum RPM, degrees per second rotation rate, and then add expo to it. And don't get me wrong, but the actual rates from the Betaflight is how the Betaflight is doing rates for a year. So no, INAV is not planning any implementation of the Betaflight rates, because to be honest, I don't get it why there are so many rate types, for example, on the Betaflight. And the actual rates are actually the Betaflight, the INAV rates. You only have to adjust the expo, and that's basically all over there. So no, we just took the INAV, made a cut, of the multi-wii legacy like very early, and we decided that those stupid rates from the multi-wii that Betaflight is using basically up until today, if not the actual rates, like 4 years ago, stop, we are not doing this, we just entered the rates as the degrees per second rotation and then add the expo on top of that, done. And now Betaflight is doing basically the same with the actual rates. So this is kind of the proof that that was Fred Armstrong, any way to unbrick NFC that doesn't have an I/O or clock pin, or is it trash? What does it mean? What do you mean by I/O pin? If you have the USB port that is still connected and is working, then you shorten the boot paths and plug in the USB, and it should boot in the DFU mode so you can flash it. If this doesn't have the USB pin and has serial port 1 broken out, you do basically the same. You take the USB to serial dongle, RTL 20 something. There are plenty of those. USB to serial. Connect your USB to serial to the UART1. Boot the board while having the boot button or the boot paths shorten, and the board goes into the STM32, goes into the DFU, and you can flash it over the USB to serial connector. That's all. Absolutely no problems with that. At least that's the theory. That's the theory. Colin Crosby, hey Pavel, what's a good choice for a bind and fly INAV ready 5-inch quad? I don't think there are bind and fly INAV ready quads. Maybe not. If the flight controller is on the list of the supported by INAV, then any bind and fly, like the Diatons, iFlights, and so on, they should be working fine. I know that quite a lot of people are using the Diaton Roma 5, for example, with INAV, and they are quite happy. However, if you are looking for something super specialized, then maybe you will not find it. But if the flight controller... if the flight controller is actually on the list of the supported by the INAV, it should work almost out of the box. So just check if the flight controller that the quad is shipped with is supported by INAV, and that's all. Embedded fabrication. How often should we keep updating INAV on the quad? The new versions are coming pretty fast. Every 6 months. There is a major version of the INAV. And for the quads, I do suggest update every major version, because there is a lot of progress in the quad performance, because this is something I'm working on mainly. And every major version really flies much better than the previous one. Definitely it's worth to update from 3 to 4 because of some of the improvements I made over there. There was a lot of sense to update from 2.6 to 3 and so on. But this is every 6 months, twice a year. So this is not really that bad. So it should be more or less fine. Okay, not INAV Fusion, UAV Fusion. What's the easiest way to calibrate milliamp hours of the lithium battery in INAV OSD? I do have a separate video how to do it. So let's see if this will... Oh yeah, you see? From the 12th of April this year, I have a video on how to do the calibration. So you just do it and it's working, no worries at all. There are two methods, one with the charger, second one with the external current meter. If you do have the charger, then you can just do the charger. I do prefer the current meter version because it's just more precise and less hassle-free. But both, when done right, actually gives you nice things. Mirkaten FPV, where is your frame? Your frame is in my Berlin apartment on the third shelf from the top. However, sorry man, but this is one of the projects that kinda got completely stuck in the process, and I cannot even promise on any kind of the delivery. But I can like say a few words about the frame of the Miuka 10 FPV, because Miuka 10 FPV made a pretty nice frame. If we go to the YouTube channel of Miuka 10 FPV, you will see that he has a super interesting 3D printed frame. I showed this thing for a few times. Looks amazing, but unfortunately, like I said, I was not able to finish this project. Maybe it's not forgotten, but not done yet. So please take a look at what he did. Maybe you will like what he did. Hopefully you will like what he did. Okay. Okay, and now I will be talking about the ExpressLRS 2.0. Yeah, and from the beginning, I'm sorry that this will be one more segment of the stream that I will later use as a separate video. So sorry for strange editing and cuts and the pauses between segments, but this is the reality. So sorry, but at least you will be the first one to know about this. ExpressLRS 2.0 has been just released. Yes, the ExpressLRS, the open source firmware for your radio link that is based on the LoRa compatible chipset 2.0 is finally out. It happened only today, only a few hours, and I took a quick look at what is offered in the ExpressLRS 2.0 and what are the major features that should make you think about updating to the 2.0. Bear in mind, it's not a full list, those are only features I thought are especially worth taking a look at. So now you have a look how am I recording videos, how the process look like. So maybe I can share a moment. I have a list of the topics that will be covered in the video, and after doing one of the segments, I just mark them that it's done, that it's done, that it's done. I'm Paweł Spychalski, thank you very much for watching and happy flying. And I'm also doing this from time to time. So okay, the list of changes for the ExpressLRS 2.0 is pretty long, but from my perspective, the most interesting features are: first of all, it's the updated and greatly improved telemetry, which right now not only supports the INAV vario sensor, but also works with the Yapu telemetry screen, and what's kinda important, offers you something that is telemetry boost. This means when the ExpressLRS is in the telemetry boost, the telemetry frames are extended much more often, and this helps to set up Betaflight via the ExpressLRS. Why? Because the data to directional data between the flight controller and your radio and the Lua script running your radar are just exchanged much faster, much often. Of course, it's not required for flight, and most probably it's even not needed and not advised to have the telemetry boost during the flight, but for the setup, when you are using the Lua telemetry with ExpressLRS, is a good idea. Oh, that was interesting, right? Interesting feature, don't you think? Don't you think? Next, there finally is a dynamic power for the ExpressLRS. That means that ExpressLRS right now has the ability to scale the output power depending on the data reported by the telemetry downlink. If the telemetry downlink reports that the receiver is receiving the data from the transmitter, absolutely no problem. That means that most probably if the transmitter would lower slightly the power, it would also work just fine. But the very moment that the receiver starts to report via the telemetry that the RSSI is low or the link quality is low, that is the sign for the transmitter to increase the output power to ensure that the correct signal will get through to the receiver and you will be able to fly further. It's not really to conserve the energy. Yeah, maybe to some extent it helps with conserving the energy, but it helps to cover one of the problems many of the ExpressLRS compatible transmitter have, the overheating power amplifier chipset. Usually we have any cooling, and if running on the high output power, okay, I'm back. I'm back one more time. Sorry for the problems with my internet connection, but what can I do? What can I do, guys? What can I do? So let's let's continue with the topic of the ExpressLRS 2.0. Next cool feature, and to be honest, one of the most important for the end user feature, is that right now, finally, it is possible to have the channel from 5 up, all the auxiliary channels, to have more than just 2 or 3 positions, because right now the auxiliary channel can be encoded with 7 bits that gives you 128 position of each of those channels. That means you can use the potentiometers or the sliders on your radio to transfer data from your radio to the flight controller. Of course, it still depends on how you're gonna use it, but right now it is possible to have 128 positions of auxiliary channels. This also means that the single on-off channels feature are gone. Gone are gone, are gone, are gone. Plus, I read something in the release notes I do not 100% understand, but the release notes of the ExpressLRS 2.0 says that the arming channel has to be on the aux channel, channel 5 high. Not sure why, from my perspective it's just a transparent radio link, but this is what they say. I assume this is super important. Sorry for a second, sorry for a second. And on top of that, there will be model match that allows you to have the receiver talk to your radio only when the correct model is enabled. That ensures that when you by accident configured your radio to use with the quad but you connect to the flying wing, you will not get some kind of strange misconfiguration of the whole process, and you can ensure that only a selected model is connected to your model and make sure that the correct model is actually running just like you want this to be running. There will be a lot of sync improvements between transmitter and the receivers, because right now the sync will be happening mostly in the middle of the bandwidth used by the ExpressLRS. And something that especially fixed wing flyers might like is the ability for the ExpressLRS receivers to output the PWM. So with the correct hardware you will be able to connect servos directly to your receivers without having this thing to go through the flight controller or crossfire to PWM decoders. And finally, much better, improved Lua scripts to set up your ExpressLRS hardware. Okay, you know what? I think I will not be doing this kind of the video recording for the next live streams. I think this really doesn't make sense, and no. I will invest time in the doing this thing in a proper way, and I will not force you to listen to me doing this thing like that. But what happened? This happened. We will not go back in time. I wish it was possible, but it's not possible. So we will just have to do it like we are doing this right now. But I promise you, I will no longer try to record the videos for the channel during the live stream like that. I still might record some excerpts, but not with me like doing this break and then read something. Because no, this really makes no sense. So it will be changing. It will be changing. Okay, Julian Kent, they give priority to the arming channel so that every lost link will still arm this one. Oh, okay, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. That means that only the AUX one is right now the priority channel. So, to be honest, if you do not do like they say you should do, it will still work just fine. However, most probably this is not how we want this to be done. The idea always that the AUX channels are only 2 or 3 positions was only somehow flawed to me. I never liked it, and the fact that the ExpressLRS is right now moving to the 128 7-bit encoding of the auxiliary channel, it is actually a super good thing, because not having this, yeah, it's not tandem res. What? Let me check something, because yesterday one of the viewers of that channel showed me something interesting, and I would like you always to take a look at it, and we will have a short discussion. Is it worthy, or is it not really worthy? But okay. Nord 49 has a copilot, and the only one he found is 4.1, because I think that copilot is only 4.1. Copilot is a fully closed source code by the. It's not really made by the ZOHD. I know that there is the proprietary super firmware running somewhere between Chinese manufacturers. They have not wrote it. No, this is not how it works. But they bought the license from someone in China, or just took it from someone in China. I don't know how the details work, but Copilot never really, from what I know, not the Copilot, the ZOHD never really wrote the Copilot. They just bought the license. And it's highly possible that this is the same license that you can, the same software that you can get on the Strange flight controllers somewhere on the AliExpress. I even once wanted to buy it, but then I got it, and Ferociter, how about the ExpressLRS TX vendor shootout? Might be an idea. Let me put it in my idea list. So, because I know that everybody likes ExpressLRS, and I can spend some time getting some kind of the information. So let me write it to the to-do. ExpressLRS TX vendor list. However, from my perspective, if you want the quality, then you should get yourself Ghost and flash it with ExpressLRS. And if you want to go cheap, then get yourself used R9 or buy those Happy Model transmitters. Most probably this is really the way to go with this thing. Embedded fabrication. It's all going to be obsolete. Elon Musk is going to offer FPV links via these satellites. No, he's not. No, he's not. I don't think really that will be that. There is not enough of the bandwidth on those things to really like cover our needs, and most probably the latency will not be something that you will be happy while flying. So no. This is not how it goes. This is not how it's working. Definitely. CS, thoughts on the ExpressLRS, not the ExpressLRS, RadioMaster Zorro. I do not have thoughts yet. I have one unit of the Zorro promised by the RadioMaster. Thanks, Ben. But it should arrive not earlier than I think February, end of January, because this is when the Zorro will hit the retailers, or maybe even later. And I think that they do it right. I think that the fact that they will have the ExpressLRS transmitter module inside of the radio built in is something that will give the RadioMaster a nice boost. Because let's be honest, ExpressLRS is super hype. People love ExpressLRS, and ExpressLRS is so fantastic. So having the radio that just does the ExpressLRS without you having to worry about putting an extra module is a good idea. So definitely this is something to think about, and it looks kind of nice. It looks kind of interesting. If the RadioMaster will deliver with its usual quality and everything will be fine. I have no idea about the price range and so on, but so far everything looks good. By the way, right now I'm playing with the latest RadioMaster T8 Lite, which is not even OpenTX, and it's super cheap radio. And even the cheapest radio probably you can have still has a nice plastic that is nicely built, and this is actually a good sign that they do worry about the quality, because in time sometimes with the cheaper manufacturers of the stuff, the quality was never really a thing. With RadioMaster, they cut corners, they remove some of the things, and for example the switches are black. You just see that the switches are cheap and the gimbals are cheap, yet the whole radio really feels kind of as a solid object in your hands, not like the sum of the things you might have here and there. So, and honestly, for $40, come on, this is the radio that just push the button, bind to the receiver. You have two sticks that takes channel 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have channel 5, 6, 7, 8. Done. 8 channels, everything. No need to worry, no need to set up. And let's be honest, that setting up the full OpenTX radio can be a pain in the posterior, because OpenTX is not something for the beginners. You do have to know how to work with the OpenTX to be able to set up OpenTX. It's not super hard, but it's also not that easy as well. So you know. Those simple radios actually might have something to them. I'm not the biggest fan for them. They are not, for example, the radios for me. I like to have the OpenTX, but you know how it is. Mike Bergman has a question. That's a very interesting question. Is there RF loss with the EP2 ceramic antenna in shrink tubing? I would not be really worried about the RF loss. What I'm more worried is that by applying an extra insulation, you are changing the, how it's called, the electric constant of the antenna, and thus by wrapping this in the any kind of the insulation, you are changing the tune, you are shifting the tune. I'm not sure how much of the thing this is for those ceramic antennas, but it can affect the tune. I would not put any kind of the extra protection on any kind of the antenna. Yes, if you wrap up the whole receiver, then probably it will be fine, but if you really like tightly put something on the receiver antenna, then it will change the tune. It will definitely change the tune. So I would be rather I would not really go that far as doing this. And now let's talk about swans. No. And now let's talk about. And now let's talk about the topic that was suggested by one of my viewers. And for years right now we have radios that have the dual band capacity. For example, let's just take a look at the 4-in-1 radio module. You have 4 different chipsets that allows you to talk with everything. If you buy yourself a radio, you can put and for example the radio has, let's say, standard 2.4 gigahertz radio link. You can just put the 900 megahertz link, and to be honest, nothing really prohibits you from using both links at the same time, because OpenTX allows you to do it. You just enable the internal module, you enable the external module, and you have 2 independent links running all together. Now, however, some of the manufacturers have the idea to, well, how to say that? To most probably move one step closer and to have the receivers with the dual band capability. Like FrSky is putting on the market something called the TDR18. The name is like a name, and from the pictures over here we clearly see that this is the receiver designed for the big scale airplane users, because it has a lot of servo output, it has the 2 inputs. This is not something that you will put on any of your 5-inch drones, but believe it or not, and probably you do believe, that there is definitely a market for this kind of the big receivers. Or if you want to, you can have the smaller tandem called the TDMX, when you have full diversity with 2.4 gigahertz and 900 megahertz antenna as well. Everything, of course, connected to 2 radio chipsets on those things, and all of them are working in both 2.4 and 900 megahertz. This you might put on your drone for sure. And this one, for example, is around $30. Not that expensive, to be honest, and the big one is for 90. Now the question is, does it really make sense to have something like that? Is having a receiver that is dual band, and in this case both bands are working at the same time, makes really sense? Would it be better to just use only one of those instead of 2? And the idea has some potential pluses, because think of it like that. The 2.4 gigahertz links are faster, because the amount of data that you can transfer to the radio is proportional to the modulation frequency, the base frequency. That means that using more or less the same technology, 2.4 gigahertz link has the higher bandwidth than the 900 megahertz. Why? Because we are just capable of switching on and offs faster, and thus transfer more information in the same amount of time. So because of that, you will have lower latency, usually will have lower latency when you are using 2.4 gigahertz link. Of course, with 2.4 gigahertz, it doesn't really have to be LoRa, and almost all of the radio systems that we are using in the 900 megahertz band are LoRa based. And something to remember about the LoRa is that LoRa is not fast. LoRa is designed to transfer some information over the long distance with as little energy cost as possible. And that means that if you are using LoRa, you do have the higher latency. And if you think like that I put a low latency 2.4 radio link for the short range flying, when I have super fast communication and everything is working just fine, and then as the addition 900 megahertz slightly higher latency but much higher range extra receiver, I have the win-win situation. In theory. At least in theory, that's the situation. I'm, however, kinda skeptical about this whole concept, because the concept is flawed in the way that you do not have to transmit the same information over the 2 independent links to be able to do it either over the long distance or fast with the low latency. Why? Because modern chipsets that are used on the 2.4 gigahertz radios, like all the ones that are used with the ExpressLRS, are the chipsets from the Semtech SX1280, 1281. This is the same hardware as, for example, TBS Tracer or the Immersion RC Ghost. Those radios can work both in the low latency and low power high range modes. Those systems can work both in the FSK modulation, which gives you fast transfer over the short distance, or the LoRa mode, which gives you lower bandwidth but much higher distance and thus the ability to fly further. And this is exactly the case, like for example, Crossfire is doing. When Crossfire is running on the 150 Hz mode, it just switches to the FSK modem, and when it goes to lower update rate, it switches to LoRa modem. So you do not really have to have two extra receivers doing this kind of the communication, because we already have the technology that allows you to do it absolutely like that. Switching the modem is much simpler than having two separate receivers with one MCU that drives them. And think of it like that. Having two separate receivers on the one board creates a lot of problems, because even with the latency, if you send the same information, the same packet over the two radio channels, the receiver then has to decide which one takes priority. Which one I should take right now, this one or this one. It's getting kind of complicated to get everything right. Also, the receiver is more expensive. The receiver maybe even can pollute each other with the noise, because I'm pretty sure that if the 900 megahertz telemetry would start to output something, it would jam the 2.4 gigahertz receiver when it's getting the data. So I'm not sure if this is really like cost-free situation at all. And I don't see really a gain of having this like that. From my perspective, it's not the 98% of the use cases, maybe even 99% of the use cases can be solved by simply having the internal switching of either 900 MHz on 2.4 GHz receivers into the correct mode. Because LoRa can work in the super high update rates. Just take a look at the ExpressLRS. 250 Hz, 500 Hz, and they are only using one frequency. And even with the 2.4 gigahertz, you can really go far. You only have to transmit the information slightly slower. So from my perspective, this idea from the FrSky is let's say driven by the marketing, because it's always a good idea to have something different than your competition, because nobody else in the market right now has dual band receivers and dual band transmitters in the new tandem radios. They have the marketing edge because nobody else has it. But is it really something that we need? I'm kinda skeptical. I would not mind if, for example, FrSky give me the samples of this technology so I can take a look at, but I really do not see the gain, because it's more expensive, it's problematic, and it's not really giving any valuable perk over having a single band, but correctly written software for the single band transmitter and the receiver. I'm Paweł Spychalski. Thank you very much for watching and happy flying. Okay, this kind of the video where I record and talk probably makes much more sense, because I did not have to make those stupid breaks between. So what are your thoughts about this kind of the dual band receivers? I'm really just not sold on the topic. I personally think that this is just like, but why? What's the real life gain? Embedded fabrication. I'm paying FrSky all that money for something that I can get on AliExpress for a couple bucks. You very often forget embedded fabrication that actually FrSky delivers above the average quality of the hardware, at least in terms of mass, because cheap receivers from AliExpress are cheap receivers from the AliExpress. I'm not saying that the FrSky has the super high quality and this is the best thing since the sliced bread, but this is not the low quality. And majority of the ExpressLRS compatible receivers that you can get from the AliExpress are actually low quality. And even the under the microscope, the ExpressLRS of the Happy model receivers, you just see that this was just done cheap. And I'm not the biggest fan of like giving like the cheapest, always the cheapest, cheap, because with the cheap you very often have to pay twice. But that's the Blair Nichols says that he doesn't see a valid use case. Well, I kinda agree. Kinda agree that it doesn't make a kinda use because why? 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 Maybe the fact that maybe if something pollutes one of the bands, then you can switch to the other. But on the other hand, even all the current receiver are working with the spread spectrum, so it's not really like one frequency. There is all the time frequency hopping. So maybe, but no, nah, nah. Nah, not really. Bartek Wróblewski, is it possible that the control from inside the car was the reason my quad fell 600 meters away from me, even though I had a crossfire? Of course. Why not? Come on. Crossfire is often sold as the no more failsafe, which is absolutely not true. Because everything, Crossfire is not magic. Crossfire is only a technology that is offered by the hardware that is put into the creative usage, and this is fantastic. This is outstanding. But if you are inside of the car, you do have to remember that you are inside of the metal box. And even especially when you like keep your radio on your knees, most probably there's a lot of electronics and the metal between you and your quad. And believe it or not, but the radio waves are not going very nicely through the metal. It works basically as a shield. So definitely, and 600 meters, if there was something else happening in the ether, I don't know, some trees or something, it's not really that close. And absolutely yes, it is possible that your quad got a failsafe only because you were flying from inside of the car. Usually, it should really be the thing, but from time to time, yes, it might give you some problems. But that was a good question. For sure. 661 FPV. If using dual band, why not use 800 MHz only? Yeah, exactly. Because 900 MHz also can work fast, but you only have to know how to put it fast. From my perspective, the dual band systems from the FrSky is, let's be honest, like to convince people to buy new crap. Bartek Wróblewski, thank you very much for your super kind donation, 25 Polish zloty. Thanks, man. Really highly appreciated. And what's wrong? I don't like 900 megahertz links because of the size of the antennas. The antennas just has to be long, and when we are building the smaller quads, smaller airplanes, it's just sometimes a problem to fit a proper 900 megahertz antenna over there. So personally, I do think that 2.4 gigahertz is just more hassle-free, and usually the range is absolutely not a problem with 2.4 if you know how to use it. So yeah. I don't like it personally. That's me. That's me, and that's something I'm repeating from time to time. I'm special, but it's not a compliment. Like, have you ever watched the Big Bang Theory and the Sheldon? That Sheldon also was special, but nobody said this as a compliment for Sheldon, right? So, on some of the aspects, I'm kind of like a Sheldon. I'm not Sheldon, but I'm more. Okay, okay. Um, Okie dokie, that was interesting. Definitely interesting. We still have 20 minutes, guys. So if you have any topics, questions, then start putting them in the chat. I will try to cover as many as I can. And now a final note, the believe it or not, but actually the H7s are the thing. Apparently manufacturers are really going quite seriously into making the H7 flight controllers. Up until very recently we basically had only like Matek selling H7s, and for like 2 years SP Racing was also selling H7s. But the SP Racing, let's say, was always a niche, if not counting the clones of the original SP Racing years ago. But H7s are there, and the H7 from Flight 1, a disaster that so many people are pissed off because Preston never delivered. However, right now what I have over here is that a lot of more manufacturers are more and more interested in putting H7 flight controllers, and what's good, they are interested in putting them on Betaflight on INAV. Like for example here, I have the H7 from the Aton. This is Mamba H7 4.3 with, I love how they did the power section on this thing. You see those three huge sections for the power with those chokes over there. This is how the power section should look like. And so this is one H7. If only they use the H7 4.3 in a different package, for example the BGA. And for example, this one has the BMI 270 gyro, and X8 is working out of the box. But I also have the Holybro H7. They are also having this on the market. Also a quite nice looking flight controller. Maybe the power section is not that nice as on the Mamba, but it's also quite fine with the with the smaller, as you can see over here, with the smaller package BGA H7. And this, for example, has the ESP32 on board because this thing has the Bluetooth. So it's like the SPDB, but not from the SPDB because you can use it. So H7s are really like hitting the market hard. Manufacturers are trying to put the H7s and force us to start using H7s. And to be honest, when you are doing freestyle, then no. Freestyle racing, there is not really that much sense of using H7s because only the fact that you can run the loop time faster doesn't really mean that you will fly better. Because if you like do all the execution in 100 microseconds or 5 microseconds, the gyro updates only every 125 microseconds, so it's just the CPU is idling more often. But you know, if, however, you are using the long range or something bigger, or even the GPS equipped, then H7s have some perks because a lot of serial ports. And this is really super nice when, for example, you have this Matek with 8 serial ports. You connect everything wherever you want and it's just working out of the box. No problems at all. Faster ability to run it faster means that INAV, for example, can work in 4 kHz mode. And if Benedict does the asynchronous I2C, 8 kHz in the full navigation will be doable. But let's see. Let's see. Benedict, I'm counting on you. I do really counting on you. Because that would be awesome. And I'm slowly kind of converting at least parts of my fleet to the H7s, and I'm happy how it works out. Because everything seems to be working just fine. Just fine, just fine, just fine. So yeah, H7s. But should you upgrade to H7? Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, freestyle racing, no, absolutely not. There is nothing in the current Betaflight or ImuFlight or maybe even INAV that really requires H7. I'm thinking about some stuff for INAV that would require slightly more computational power, but I'm only thinking. So maybe, yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know, but rather I will not really go that far with that. We will see. We will see. We will see. But it's an idea. It's an idea. Um, Bartek had one more question. Bartek is new to FPV. I have learned a lot of things already. Good for you. But I have a Chimera 7 with GPS and barometer. Will this be enough for return to home in INAV without the compass? No, you need compass because return to home with INAV requires the compass because then the quad goes when it took off and lands. Like lands and disarms. And for this landing, you just have to have the compass because the quad has to have the orientation, and this can be provided only by the compass. So just update the GPS to something with the compass on board and you should be golden fine, because the setup of the INAV quad is not that much complicated as many people assume. So Benedict, you write that F7 is more similar to F4. Comparing to what? To H7? Yes, definitely. Maybe on the code level, yes, F4s and F7 are similar, but F7s are a step forward with much nicer I/O capabilities and built-in inverters. But you're the expert. You're the expert. I'm not the expert. Oh, by the way, if in case any one of you missed, the INAV 4.0 will be called Red Kite. INAV for Red Kite, and for 99% will be released next week during the next week's live stream on the 18th of the Saturday and 18th of the December. Saturday 7 p.m. Central European time. Like always, we're gonna have a nice show with me releasing INAV 4.0. Of course, I will have to get that many likes and so on. You know how it is, you know the drill. We were doing this for a few times at least already, so everything should be fine. Luckily, there were no major problems with the release candidates we have for INAV 4, so everything should be fine. And I do not really expect anything bad happening with INAV 4. So kudos for us. Final thoughts. This is the reminder, or maybe like the information, in case you are not yet my Patreon or the YouTube supporter. There is an argument to become one, because recently I started to do giveaways again. I had a break from giveaways, but right now I decided that the selling of some of the stuff doesn't really make sense, and maybe some people would be lucky, would like to have some of the interesting hardware I own. For example, last month I gave away my Yeti DS12 radio with the receiver. 600 euros worth of the radio is right now a radio of one of my Patreons. You do not have to be my Patreon or YouTube supporter to participate in the giveaways, but they are announced only on those two channels. So if you are a YouTube supporter or my patron on the Patreon, you know that I have a giveaway. But if you know, then it's fine. You do not have to be the patron to participate. But you know when you are a patron. If you are not the patron, then you don't know about the giveaway. So, it's always a good idea to become one. I'm just like pushing you towards this because affiliate market is dead. Affiliate market no longer exists in the RC hobby, and that I know that it really hit a lot of creators on the YouTubes in the last year dramatically, because I saw how much my income from the affiliate marketing went down, and it went down like 6 times less, it's really a tragedy. I'm not counting on affiliate income at all because it's not existing at all. In my case, the YouTube income is okay, maybe on the same levels. I'm getting much more less views, but I have apparently higher prices for the advertisers, so it's like more like keeping it. If, to be honest, if not the Patreon, I don't think I would be doing this anymore, because it's a lot of. So one more time, thank you very much, all my patrons and YouTube supporters, for backing me for the last few years. And to be honest, this channel, those streams, and INAV exists only thanks to you. Maybe not only, but at least my participation in this exists greatly thanks to you. Envy to the Birds, thank you very much for your donation, mate. Thank you very much for your $5. Has a question, and Envy of the Birds is having an issue where the artificial horizon on my Nano Goblin drifts slowly when flying only some of the time. Wing flies fine otherwise. Any idea? Yeah, the artificial horizon drifts from time to time. What you can do? Usually the drift means that there is probably too much of the noise in the vibration, and the signal from the accelerometer and the gyroscope kinda diverged, and something is going wrong. I'm not sure which settings you have applied, but for the INAV 4.0 there will be a change made by Mark Hoffman that improves the behavior of the artificial horizon. So my suggestion is that when next week we will release the INAV 4.0, that you apply the defaults from the configurator. Do not restore your full configuration, but use the defaults applied by the configurator, and then set up your model again. It's not fixing the problem 100%, but it's improving the situation of the artificial horizon. So Mark is quite happy with what he did, and apparently his changes are working, but usually the artificial horizon is greatly connected with the vibrations and the divergence between the signal from those two sensors. And usually it's working just fine, but sometimes not. Also, what helps is to have to have the flight controller and the gyro chipset itself as close to the center of the gravity of the airplane as possible, because if you are in the center, then during the roll, pitch and yaw there are no centrifugal forces acting on the sensor, and thus the accelerometer is not going sideways. CS has the question: can Kalman filter be used to estimate the orientation based on gyro and GPS data? Yes and no. Because the GPS data, you cannot easily combine information from the GPS and the gyro, because they are working in a completely different frame of the reference. If you have two sensors working in the different frame of the reference, because the GPS is the absolute but the gyro is relative, then the units will absolutely not, combine. Working with the accelerometer data and the gyroscope data and the Kalman filter, yes. However, INAV is not really using INAV Kalman filter for that, because with the problems of the tuning of the filter, instead we use the alpha beta filter, which the problem is not really with the filter or lack of the Kalman. The problem with the horizon drifting is more like connected with the centrifugal forces during the maneuvers, and even the Kalman would not really fix that. To fix that, you have the information about the speed and be able to estimate the strength of the centrifugal force acting on your airplane, and this is kind of more complicated than just running through some kind of the filter. Yeah, that's how it goes. Envy of the Birds, and another thing, I just thought the board is slightly in contact with the plastic of the VTX antenna below. I wonder if that introduces vibrations. It can. It's possible, because the flight controller and the gyro on board should rather not directly contact anything. It's really a good idea for this thing to be on those rubber grommets and being like dampened inside. So it's a good idea. Just move it slightly. Maybe it will help, but it's not guaranteed that it is the cause of the problem and it will solve the problem. Might help, but might not help as well. And you actually have to check if it helps or not. And I see that my internet is killing me again today. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. By the way, we still have 5 minutes of the show, so it's time for the final questions right now in the chat. We will answer those here, and then I will go and, I don't know, watch TV. Oh, maybe I will just watch a few episodes of Seinfeld. I'm right now rewatching the Seinfeld again. I'm not sure how popular the sitcom is in the Europe, but I love Seinfeld. But I know that in the United States, the Seinfeld is kind of popular thing, and a lot of people love Seinfeld. I do like Seinfeld, so yeah. Okay, Big Boost, FPV. By the way, Big Boost, thanks a lot for years, maybe even years, for being my supporter here on the YouTubes. Question. Asked already on the GitHub while ago. My SpeedyBee F7 V2, the D-shot beacon and buzzer is always on. Does INAV have something like beeper inversion equals on? The beeper inversion, but there is beeper inversion, but beeper inversion is how the beeper is driven from the flight controller, because usually the beepers are connected, the buzzers are connected via the N-channel MOSFET, NFET, and that means that it has to be driven low to be on. So this means inverted inside of the Betaflight. However, this is not really the case for the shot beacon. So if it's always on, it is always beeping, that means that it's beeping for a reason. And you have to find out what is the reason. This is probably the way you should really go with that. Because probably the beeper inversion that is implemented is not the beeper inversion that you think of, and this really doesn't apply to the D-shot beacon. So check why it's beeping. There must be a reason why it's beeping. Maybe you have a mode enabled, or the radio link is off, or something else, but yeah, I really do hope that I answered your question. Nord 49, yes, 411s are supported in the INAV 4.0. Nothing changes over there. There was a feature cut on the 411s because there is just not enough of the flash on those things. And by the way, do not buy 411s anymore for INAV. They are just like too small, and we had to remove some of the not that popular functions from them to be able just to compile this thing. So no, don't use it. But yes, it's still supported by. Don't build a new airplanes with F411s. It's time to let go. It's time to let go, like we let go F1s and we let go F3s, and the next ones that we will let go will be F411s and F722s. It will still probably take a few years, but F722s are also like they are the 411s, and F22s are the first one to go because of the limited flash memory. Pot I. Question about quad return to hope. Does the altitude setting take effect if I'm above it? So if I set it to 50 meters, will it climb it if it will climb if below, or will it stay at 150 meters when return to home kicks in, or will it descend? It depends on the altitude control setting. By default, INAV comes with at least. So if you are below 50 meters, it will climb to 50 meters, but if it's at 150, it will do the return to home at 150 and then just land vertically. You can change this behavior. It can be changed in the configurator, but by default, this is the situation. If above, then keep the altitude that you have right now. If below, then climb to the desired altitude. A big boost FPV, yes, but there is the reason why it's always on INAV. That it's not on by mistake. There is something happening that it's on. Trust me, big boost FPV. Betaflight is different flight controllers, and something causes the beeper to be on in INAV. Both the shot and the buzzer. This is really the thing, and the inversion would not help. Daytona FPV would be nice if we had something like F6765 in the form factor of the 411. Technically possible, but then it would be super expensive board, because then why. Okay, gents, 2 hours. Ladies, any ladies today? No idea if there will be any ladies. Anyhow, thank you very much for joining. Let's meet next week on the 18th during the INAV 4.0 Red Kite official release process. I'm not sure. No, I'm sure. So this is it. I'm not sure if I will release this live stream as the podcast on different places because of the problems. So probably the audio will be just garbage. I will see. We will see. And well, thank you very much. So happy flying. Winter is here, but winter will end, hopefully, quite soon. So have a nice evening, have a nice day, have a nice morning, because I know that Australia and New Zealand is right now early in the morning. So thanks guys, and ciao.